Hey ratbags, my name's Jade. I've been covering Grounded for years, got 1,000 hours in the game, and I'm here today for the PlayStation and Switch peoples, giving you a starter tips guide. Now the game has been out a week. I've been busy making brand new Game Plus content since the Xbox has been out a long time, but I don't want to leave my PlayStation people behind. So here is basically how to survive the first 2 days with top tips. The map seems maybe a little bit basic, but ideally you're looking at the area and realizing that where you are right now is mostly tier 1 to tier 2 creatures. In fact, you'll find a bunch of creatures that are just going to be tier 1 and obviously making it a bit easier to survive. You don't really want to go exploring too far either west or south just yet, and certainly nowhere in the upper yard, which will be hard to anyway as it's all a little bit more vertical. It's one of the best rules in early game. Build close to one of the field stations so you can keep analysing your resources. To the southeast you'll find the berry bushes, and that's a vital resource and probably one of the first places you're going to explore in terms of laboratories to get progress through the game. Although you should always head to the oak tree first and complete the parts of the first couple days missions and progress the story to meet Burgle. Avoid that slightly high coloured contrast circle, that's the haze. You don't want to be visiting there. Even if you craft a gas mask to survive, there's lots of infected creatures that will one-shot you. And you don't really need to head over to the picnic table or the sandbox just yet either. So pretty much build a base anywhere between here and the oak tree. Also, always a good idea to build a small base up higher, but otherwise you should be relatively safe as long as you don't explore too much at night time. One thing you might have forgotten about is mutations. These can pop up by killing certain bugs, doing certain actions like perfect parrying, and you might not have even realised you've unlocked one. So do keep checking that mutations page regularly, see if there's anything new. They give you some great buffs and you can work towards unlocking each tier of some of their mutations, and they really will make a difference in you defeating bugs and making progress. It's important to build near that field station so you can keep scanning your resources. You want to be coming back here every 10 minutes as that's when the resource analyzer will basically restock. You can scan 3 items at a time and then it will slowly fill up 1 item every 3.5 minutes or so. It's really important you do this because this is how you unlock more advanced materials and recipes. You'll get the idea for a recipe sometimes, it'll explain what something does, but then when you go and scan it, it'll unlock even more. The other machines next to it are underpowered at the moment, but as soon as you go to the oak tree, you'll be able to access and change and mix up what you buy from the Burgle shop. That's the unlocks that you get with that raw science, them pink globs you probably found a bunch of. And as you analyse stuff, it also contributes to your brain power score, which also gives you raw science as a reward. Raw science is a really important resource. It'll help you buy something from the Burgle ASL shop and pretty much get more advanced mutations, unlocks and new build pieces. Now, if you hadn't worked out, you're meant to go ahead and repair this mysterious machine by restoring power. It doesn't explicitly show you exactly where to go, but you can see the tripods and you should aim to go to the one that's blinking. And then you've got to destroy that piece of grass to have the lasers going straight to the machine. It's something pretty obvious for most players, but you'll be surprised how many people get lost with this if it doesn't directly tell you where to go. Along the way, always kill gnats. You'll need a ton of their fuzz to go ahead and make bows, and it is some resource that you'll need for later, and it can be tough to get them sometimes until you work out where they go at night time. First weapon you should be crafting is an axe. As long as you scan some fibre and then made that fibre into crude rope and then scan that crude rope again, it should unlock, and it's pretty easy to make. It can stun ants and it will take care of the mites where you have to kill a lot of them, eating the cable that's stopping the power from getting through to the mysterious machine. This is your perfect time for noobs to learn how to perfect parry. Perfect parry is pretty much the core mechanic of combat in this game. There are other ways to play with range builds, magic builds, and being able to just tank and soak up damage. But if you learn to perfect parry, getting that blocking just before an enemy attacks, you'll do so much better. Once you've cleared out the small mite tunnel out of the mites chewing the cable, remember to come back to places where it says you need a decent hammer or a tier 2 hammer. These will often have more resources like milk motors, which I'll explain later, or upgrade rocks, which you won't necessarily need just yet, but are going to come in handy. And there we go, about 20 minutes of gameplay condensed into 4 there. That's how you turn on the mysterious machine, and I reckon you lot should have worked all that out by now. It clearly shows an explosion at the oak tree, and that's where you want to head straight away. You don't really want to mess around building a base just yet, as you can unlock a ton of resources and make use of daylight. If you head straight for the oak tree and don't deviate, you shouldn't run into too much trouble. At worst, you might have to deal with some larvae, and if you've been practicing your perfect parrying on their mites, you should be good enough to take care of some of these. They are quite tanky, and axes aren't necessarily the best thing to kill them with, but it will be what you've got to hand. Also, weapons are dangerous. They can do area effect damage sometimes, so even if you're not aiming for something, I somehow managed to anger this ant. They do gang up on you and they will attack you if you attack them. In these early days, you don't really want to be killing too many of them, as they're just annoying, especially if they do gang up on you, and they'll leave you alone as long as you leave them alone. As you get close to the oak tree, hopefully you've gone and crafted yourself a hammer. Make sure you get plenty of oak pieces and the acorn top. Something's off with the PlayStation at the moment, but you can get smoothies that we'll make later, and these are going to give you lots of heals and lots of other effects. But supposedly they're meant to unlock with some base recipes. At the moment though, you need to scan the acorn top to actually unlock these recipes. It's a bit of a glitch at the moment on PlayStation, as that's not normally the case. Inside that laboratory you'll find tons of more sap, so don't spend too long gathering the big nodules you'll find on the oak tree itself. You'll find bandages, some food and lots of water from the water cooler. And here's the raw science I mentioned earlier, just in case you hadn't got this far. Burgle the robot is there to guide you, so always talk to him if you're a bit lost about what to do next. Put your hand on the scanner and that will help restore the next part of the story and give you the power for the ASL science shop that I spoke about. This is where you can go ahead and see your quests. These are another great addition in giving you raw science. They won't fill up necessarily unless you go ahead and complete the first 3. Eventually, once you've done 20, you'll unlock random ones. But you can earn progress and you can get some of these mystery ones all the way up to like 99 if you go ahead and do the action. So you might kill a tier 3 bug earlier than you may be meant to. It will give you the reward. You're not going to be locked out or have to do it again. The science shop is definitely something you need to visit, and buy the smithing station. This is how you can upgrade your weapons and make them more powerful and give more bust to your armor. And that's pretty much all you need right now. The rest of them obviously might be too much raw science, but ignore cooking until you start building up at least what you can see here in terms of ingredients to make some of these meals. They will give you longer lasting buffs, but until you've got a good supply of them, that cookery is just going to be useless. Instead, you want to work on multi-bases, fortified bases, and maybe the mutation meat shield, which will give you extra health. The duper machine comes in handy mid to late game, but you need to unlock certain discs that will basically allow you to duplicate any item that you can find. It does cost raw science, so that's why you're going to need a ton of that as well. But yeah, it will also come in handy for New Game Plus, but that will be saved for another video. Grounded's filled with areas that you won't be able to access until you get the right passkey or the right materials to gain through. So ignore that for now, get outside and find somewhere maybe on a lily pad or close to the edge of the pond and go ahead and build yourself your first maybe outpost or base. In years gone by, every starter guide I've ever done has said dive into the water, and as long as you're getting enough oxygen right by them lily pads, you can pick up a cool stinger spear here, which is technically a tier 2 weapon, or even though it's a rotten version which does slightly less damage. But they've moved it, it's actually underneath the jaw of that dinosaur. So if you do come here and do this, go down a bit more. If you watch anyone else's videos on it, you might be wondering where it's disappeared to. They just moved it slightly below it. Spiders are no joke, but they're pretty much the only real big danger in the water in the early days, especially in this pond at least anyway. That and running out of oxygen. It's not like Subnautica, as soon as it goes to 0, you're pretty much dead. When you die, if you left it on normal game mode settings, you will drop your resources in your bag, but you keep all your gear and equipment, so don't panic too much about dying. This gave me a great reason to revisit the analyzer and scan a grass plank. This is how you get your workbench so you can craft new gear. And a lot of base building pieces. It's up to you, you don't have to rush stuff. If you want to start building a grass palace, you do you. Otherwise, I kind of like just living out of my crafting boxes for now until I've found the perfect location a bit later. One word of warning, at night time, wolf spiders start prowling around the oak tree. So it's not always a great idea, as they're going to be just way too powerful for you in the early days. Also, don't forget to peep stuff. This is vital in getting you the info you need to defeat creatures. Some of these underwater ones are so friendly that they're not going to have any weaknesses. But once you start peeping other creatures, you'll learn exactly what to face them off against with what type of weapon and what type of elemental damage. All that done, we've built our base and we're doing pretty good. Crafting myself a pebblet spear and we're pretty much ready to get ourselves our first set of armour, which for me is the aphid slippers. That's why you should always save 2 pieces of aphid and try and keep 4 pieces of weevil meat. If you scan the weevil meat, and you may have to scan the aphid stuff too, it will unlock the shield and the boots. The boots will make you go faster, and I just prefer these to try and stay away from danger. Clover armor should be the next armor set that you probably make, as it will help against some of the early game creatures. So there we go, we've caught up with a very rapid guide. I've done much longer ones on how to survive, but like I said, I feel like most of you have probably got the basics by now since the game's been out over a week. Now what matters is getting some of them things I spoke about, making sure you've got a shield, making sure you've got either a full set of clover armor or some of the acorn and pieces to make oak. A big plus for your aphid boots is finding locations. These pretty much anything you find, like a drink can, garbage, any kind of big item that's been dumped in the backyard, they'll often be landmarks, and if they pop up, that means that you are on your way to discovering a mutation. This is vital for keeping these boots really useful. I think you find 15 different landmarks and it basically gives you a speed increase. So never ignore some of them, always go and investigate a can or whatever it is around the yard, and you'll be able to see that actually in the data menu it lists some of the locations of where you might need to explore to find some. That includes some of the more field stations you'll find all over the yard, as well as some of the secret laboratories we'll be investigating. Take full advantage of the hot pouch system. Make sure you've got one hotbar set up so it's got your basics. Hotbar number 2 will be something for your foraging or gathering resources like your tools, your torch, and hotbar 3 could be something to do with your range build, which hopefully if you've got enough gnat fuzz, you should be able to craft yourself a bow. To make arrows, don't forget you've got to go and get some of the thistle needles. Especially on controller, if you go ahead into the options menu, you can reassign what buttons do what. If you reassign the left D-pad, which is normally for emotes, you can make that instead use up whatever's in hot pouch slot number 1. That way you can put potions, healing items here, and whenever you're in combat, you only have to quickly tap the D-pad instead of bringing up the radial menu and then choosing what it is. It's a really game saver. As long as you don't mind losing using emotes, I think it helps out. But yeah, definitely spend some time sorting out your hot pouches. You should see lots of creatures roaming around underground. These are grubs most of the time. You have got a chance of digging up larvae, but not usually around the oak tree, only in other areas. They usually make a bit more noise and you'll see a bit more pronounced the dirt rising up, so you can work out if they're friendly or foe. Grubs are really important for helping you make smoothies, which will help you heal. You can also make some pretty decent armor out of them, which helps with stamina if you go ahead and scan it. There shouldn't be too many dangers here, other than, like I said, the wolf spiders living directly inside the oak tree, and occasionally a orb weaver that might come wandering over from the west side of the oak tree. Other than that, it's a good place to dig up these, maybe get some more resources, like I said, to make your shield. Grub meat is also something you want to cook up, because you won't necessarily need it for anything else other than food. That gold card you got, well, it's kind of useless now. You needed all of them to be gold, basically a chance of it triggering when you harvest a creature to get 100% completion in the game. But they changed that recently, so you don't need gold cards, you just need to scan every single creature with the peeper. What gold cards can do is unlock a late game mutation that helps give more critical damage if you unlock enough of them, and you can only get the gold card normally if you've already scanned and peeped something, so always peep creatures just in case you go and kill them later. Some creatures are going to have multiple weaknesses and multiple resistances. There's so many to go through, I'm going to save that for another video, but the basics are that yes, your axe is going to do chopping, your daggers or swords are going to be slashing damage, your spears and arrows stabbing damage, so making sure when you're facing up against an enemy you start to learn what they're weak to and using the tools. Always try and have one kind of tool on you at all times, a spear, an axe, a hammer and a bow, and you're pretty much good and set. Some creatures are definitely tougher than others and definitely not worth attacking until you've got more healing items like bandages and smoothies, especially ladybugs, they're tanky as hell. Best way to deal with them is sometimes go up high and rain down on them with range and arrows to soften them up a little bit before engaging with some melee. Remember to keep coming back and scanning stuff. And if you've managed to complete some quests, make sure you refill them at the Burgle quest screen. If you made some torches and you got fairly okay armor, you might want to investigate the abandoned anthill. The back of this laboratory leads down into it, and this is important because this will probably be one of the first places you can find upgrade rocks. Follow the raw science, jump down, and pretty much you'll be in some water and be safe. There's a big hole there, avoid that until you've got breathing equipment later, but head out the exit. It will lead back up to where you just were, or another exit that will take you outside the oak tree. As soon as you leave the water, look on the ground. You're looking for shards. These are really small pieces of the upgrade rocks that you can use to enhance your armor and your weapons. You've got marble, and then you've also got quartzite. You need a fair few of these ones, and you will find bigger deposits that you can demolish with your hammer, but some of them are going to require a tier 2 hammer, just like this milk molar. Now these milk molars will give you buffs and bonuses if you haven't got this far yet. You do need that tier 2 hammer, which is made out of different bug parts, and it basically increases your health, your stamina. And if you find the gold versions, they help out in multiplayer, but also increase how many arrows and resources. So do try and remember where you've seen some of the milk molars. It's another requirement for getting 100% if you want to get the best scorecard score when you've completed grounded. So if you collected all them shards, you can simply go back into the laboratory. But I'm going to go down and face off against some of these. In fact, this guy came to face off against me. They can jump quite high. A lot of bugs can surprisingly jump quite high. So you're not always safe if you're just a little bit higher. They are tough soldier ants, but they can be predictable. So as long as you learn how to perfect parry and you're using a spear, you'll make short work of them. I've noticed on the PlayStation that obviously using the haptic feedback makes it a lot more sensitive, so you might want to turn that down a little bit if you're finding trouble or mistiming attacks. If you've got good aim, throwing is always a great thing to do. Pretty much all weapons do a lot more damage when thrown. In fact, it's how speedrunners pretty much play this game, constantly throwing their weapons rather than sitting there attacking with melee. So you drop down, you won't be able to get back up, so I'm going all the way through this abandoned anthill. There's not much in here, and once you've cleared it out once and maybe got some of the upgrade rocks with your hammer, there really isn't much reason to revisit again. There are just a few more shards though, so look around on the floor for them. It's only the soldier ants that will be aggressive. As long as you don't attack any of the regular ants, they should leave you alone. Back at base, let's get that smoothie station up and running, and like I said, at the moment it seems to be a glitch. When you've crafted one of these and then gone into it, you should be able to see a bunch of smoothies, just basic ones that will give you some healing. It should be called soothing syrup, but for some reason it's just not there. So make sure you've scanned the grub sludge and the acorn top just to make sure they do appear. The more bug parts that you gather, the more recipes you unlock that will give you more boost to stamina, oxygen, attacks and healing. And try to resist cooking all of your weevil meat, as you're going to need it to repair your shield. Shields can't be repaired in any other way nor upgraded, and so you are definitely going to need lots of weevil meat. At your crafting bench, you'll be upgrading your rocks. You've now got the whetstones, and this is how you can then craft your smithing station to upgrade more. If you time things right, instead of using resources to repair your tools or your armor, you can actually just go ahead and upgrade, and that automatically repairs them. There are ways that you can get advanced weapons early, and you won't be able to repair them until you unlock something called glue. The glue is something that will take a while, and so until then the only way to repair stuff is to go ahead and upgrade them. The upgrade system is convoluted. There's all different tiers of rocks that you can get, and you do need to combine them. Some of the rocks you won't necessarily get the recipes to make them yourself, or use them until later on when you've cleared out some more of the laboratories. So if you're wondering how you get from like tier 1 all out to tier 9, then yeah, a lot of them are a lot behind. They are also finite. Once you've got them rocks, they don't respawn. What does respawn are the bugs. And as I said, once you unlock the recipes, you'll be able to craft the similar or same upgrade rocks using bug parts and sap. That's why it's always good to get lots of sap. If you go past a node, grab some, or eventually set up some sap collectors. In the early days though, I wouldn't really upgrade too much of your first gear, maybe your axe a couple levels or your spear, and save the upgrade rocks for something a bit better. The exception to that is the speed boots, which I like just because it gives them a bit more durability. As you'll notice, they do need repairing quite a lot at level 1. It's coming to the end of day 2, so let's finish off with the rest of the stuff I was talking about, like getting myself my arrows. Grab as many as you can from the thistle plant, and you probably won't have to revisit for a while. You can also make traps out of these if you scan a weed stem, but you don't really need defensive traps for a while. Unless you've built directly in the line of some really dangerous bugs, you won't be raided or attacked for a good time, and even then it's only sort of small bugs. It's only when you get to the later stages that you might want to think about defenses for your base, as you can piss off bugs enough that they will raid you. There are so many resources, I don't panic too much about what ones you should be doing in order. Just go ahead and make sure you visit it regularly with stuff as soon as you realise it hasn't been scanned. But I would say Fuzz here is good because it will unlock a new smoothie, which is one of the best in the game, Fuzz on the Rocks, which gives you more health. Also, do note that data you find, like tapes, cassettes or files, you need every single one of them in the game to also get 100% score. Now, 100% score isn't necessary to complete the game or get a super duper ending, it's just a mark that you're a grounded pro. But it's worth bearing in mind now so you don't have to revisit or try and work out exactly what you missed. The data table does give you clues about what ones are outstanding, and you can check the wikis later if it is something you end up deciding you want to do. So with all my Weevil meat, it was finally time to scan it and get that shield unlocked, as well as the gas mask. I'd managed to get a Weevil nose which has a chance of dropping, and you'll need that for later or when fighting stink bugs. Go ahead and scan an acid and you will also unlock a trinket. Trinkets are really important as you progress through the game. You'll find a bunch of them. They really help out flesh out different builds that you might want to have, like range build, acid build, poison build. Give you more boosts and buffs. You can unlock 3 straight away. They're not amazing, but they will give you an indication of what to expect later. So by the end of day 2 now, we've got the basics done. A shield, a bow, arrows. We've got the majority of the tools and weapons we need. You can do other stuff like make the spiky sprig if you really want, and craft some of the trinkets and give them a go. I'm going to go with Astonishing Acid as it gives a little bit more damage with the 3rd hit of your combo rather than the other 2. And that's where we're going to leave it. The first 2 days of survival, a beginner's guide in just getting you there and hopefully anything you might have missed. Now it's on to starting the laboratories and looking at the hedge and exploring some of the more dangerous areas. Hopefully you found this useful. If you have, leave a like and I'll see you ratbags for more soon. Bye bye.